Good afternoon. I'm Carl with Capital Recovery. This is our family meeting. Today is June 6th, and it's Tuesday, and we're going to be reading Understanding Drug Use and Addiction, Drug Facts. So it goes on to say, let's start. Many people don't understand why or how other people become addicted to drugs. They may mistakenly think that those who use drugs lack moral principles or willpower, and that they could stop their drug use simply by choosing to. In reality, drug addiction is a complex disease, and quitting usually takes more than good intentions or a strong will. Drugs change the brain in ways that make quitting hard, even for those who want to. Fortunately, researchers know more than ever about how drugs affect the brain and have found treatments that can help people recover from drug addiction and lead productive lives, which is very true. You can recover from drug addiction and live productive lives. And it doesn't say we're recovered, we're in recovery. And, we're never recovered. It's an ongoing process of recovery. And it says drugs change the brain in ways that it makes it hard to quit. And that's very true. It's definitely hard to quit. Here we go. Hey, Bailey, can you hear me? You're on mute. All right. Because here's one of the questions. It says, what is drug addiction? Addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug syncing and use that is compulsive or difficult to control. Despite harmful consequences, the initial decision to take drugs is voluntary for most people, but repeated drug use can lead to brain changes that challenges an addicted person's self-control and interfere with their ability to resist intense urges to take drugs. These brain changes can be persistent, which is why drug addiction is considered a relapsing disease. People recovering from drug use disorders are at increased risk for returning to drug use, even after years of not taking the drug. And common for a person to relapse, but relapse doesn't mean that treatment doesn't work. As with other chronic health conditions, treatment should be ongoing and should be adjusted based on how the patient responds. Treatment plans need to be reviewed often and modified to fit the patient's changing needs. I like that. It says treatment should be ongoing and should be adjusted. So, for many years I went to treatment, and as soon as I got out, I stopped with my recovery. So went to treatment, did what I had to do, and as soon as I got out, I stopped doing the things I was doing inside of treatment. And it talks about things need to be adjusted. So like what was working for me in the beginning doesn't always mean that's gonna be working years down the road. I mean, what's suggested was me, the basics always apply, but your recovery plan always needs to be updated and adjusted. So it goes on to say, let's see, what happens to the brain when a person takes drugs? Most drugs affect the brain reward circuit, causing aroma as well as flooding it with the chemical messenger dopamine. A properly functioning reward system motivates a person to repeat behaviors needed to thrive, such as eating and spending time with loved ones. Surges of dopamine in the reward circuit causes the reinforcement of pleasurable but unhealthy behaviors.
Somebody trying to get into me.
Yeah, I clicked on her.
Where?
She just left.
Go back.
Go back where?
Open it up.
Yeah, I joined this and everything. Surges in the reward circuit causes the reinforcement of pleasurable but unhealthy behaviors, like taking drugs, leading people to repeat behavior again and again. As the person continues to use drugs, their brain adapts by reducing the ability of the cells in the reward circuit to respond to it. These reduces the high that the person feels compared to the high level, a high they felt when first taking the drug. An effect known as tolerance, they might take more of the drug to try and achieve the small high. These brain adaptations often lead to the person becoming less and less able to derive pleasurable from other things they once enjoyed, like food, sex, or social activities. Long term use also causes changes in our brain chemical system and circuits, as well affecting functions that include learning, judgment, decision making, stress, memory, and behavior. Despite being aware of these harmful outcomes, many people who use drugs continue to take them, which is the nature of addiction. So it's causing chemicals in the brain, and it can be your learning disability, impair your decision making, makes more stress, loss of memory, the way you behave. Um, Drug use does impair all of them. And says, let's see here, why do some people become addicted to drugs while others don't? Huh, that's a good one. No one factor can predict if a person will become addicted to drugs. A combination of factors influences risk for addiction. The more risk factors a person has, the greater the chance that taking drugs can lead to addiction. For example, biology, the genes that people are born with account for about half of a person's risk for addiction. Gender and ethnicity and the presence of others' mental disorders may also influence this risk for drug use, and addiction. The next one is environment. A person's environment includes many different influences from family and friends to economic status and general quality of life. Factors such as peer pressure, physical and sexual abuse, early exposure to drugs, stress, parental guidance, and greatly affects a person's likelihood of drug use and addiction. And it says development. Genetic and environmental factors interact with a critical developmental stage in a person's life to affect addiction risk. Although taking drugs at any age can lead to addiction, the earlier that drug use begins, the more likely it will progress to addiction. This particular problematic for teens because areas in our brains that control decision making, judgment, and self control are still developing. Teens may be especially prone to risky behaviors, including trying drugs. I definitely agree with this last thing, particularly. It says because of areas in their brains that control decision making, judgment, and self control are still developing, teens may be especially prone to risky behaviors, including trying drugs. So, as a kid, that when you're taking drugs and alcohol and you're flooding your mind with all these substances, you know what I mean, it stops the development of your brain. So, like they say, is like when you start using drugs and years later on that when you stop using drugs usually your mind is still not fully developed so you're still takes time to gain. Sometimes we don't gain things back. We burn ourselves out so much that memory loss, like we talk about. We talk about developing mental disorders. So we can really put a damper on our mental state and our physical state. So it's, mental, physical, and spiritual. And it goes on to say, can drug addiction be cured or prevented? As with most other chronic diseases such as diabetes or heart disease, treatment for drug addiction generally isn't a cure. However, addiction is treatable and can be successfully managed. People who are recovering from addiction will be at risk for relapse for years and possibly for their whole lives. Research shows that combining addiction treatment medicines with behavioral therapy ensures the best chance of success for the patients. Treatment approaches tailored to each patient drug use patterns and any co-occurring medical, mental, and social problems can lead to continued recovery. More good news is that drug use and addictions are preventable. Results from NIDA funded research has shown that prevention programs involving families, schools, and communities and the media are effective for preventing or reducing drug use and addiction. Although personal events and cultural factors affect drug use trends, when young people view drugs use as harmful, they tend to decrease their drug taking. Therefore, education and outreach are key in helping people understand the possible risk of drug use. Teachers, parents, and health care providers have crucial roles in educating young people and preventing drugs use and addiction. So I think it's very important that like we apply resources and at a young age. If we get to the kids before they can get to the drug use, because drug use is real prevalent right now. And if we apply and give more resources and give them more options so they don't go down that road. That's what we do as a recovery coach here at Capital Recovery. We give resources and hopefully we can get people in treatment, give them, there's many roads of recovery and there's many options that you can choose from. We try to get people as they, as they are young before they can go down that dark road. Alright. And the last part here is says points to remember. Drug addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug seeking and use that is compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. Brain changes that occur over time with drug use challenge an addicted person's self-control and interfere with their ability to resist intense urges to take drugs. This is why drug addiction is also a relapsing disease. The urges, they come and go, or as they say, we have the thoughts, but is it really a urge, and a lot of times when you're in early recovery, urges do happen, but they do pass, Relapse is the return to drug use after an attempt to stop. Relapse indicates the need for more or different treatment. And it goes on to say most drugs affect the brain reward circuit by flooding it with the chemical messenger dopamine. Surges of dopamine in the reward circuit causes the reinforcement of pleasurable but unhealthy activities, leading people to repeat the behavior again and again. We're used to we like doing not so right things. You know what I mean? Over time, the brain adjusts to the excess dopamine, which reduces the high that the person feels compared to the high they felt when they first taken the drug. An effect known as tolerance, they might take more of the drug trying to achieve the same dopamine high. Yet, building tolerance, we never we use and we're chasing that first one, and that first one is long gone, and we dig ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper to like get higher and get higher, but our tolerance is so high that and it's fatal, and it reduces to can be reduced to a overdose or chasing. No single factor can predict whether a person will become addicted to drugs. A combination of genetic, environmental, and developmental factors influences risk for addiction. The more risk factors a person has, the greater chance that taking drugs can lead to addiction. Drug addiction is treatable and can be successfully managed. Yes, can be treatable. Um, so going to treatment, going to detox, going to IOP, going to meetings, um, getting counseling, getting therapy, getting professional help. Some types of medications need to be assisted. Um, the more you do, the better the outcome comes. It says more good news is that drug use and addiction are preventable. Teachers, parents, and healthcare providers can crucially roles in educating young people and preventing drug use and addiction. So that was the last part. Um, yeah, like how I was talking about, it can be treatable, and I didn't know that in years before my recovery process started, that I needed to do things to keep my recovery, things I had to do on a daily basis for the rest of my life that which I didn't want to do. I was like, damn, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Why can't I just stop using drugs, be clean and sober, and live a life? And I was sadly mistaken. There's work needing to be done. For me, I go to a 12-step fellowship. But like I said, there's many roads to recovery. There's counseling, therapy, meetings, church-based. We got to find what fits for you. We always talk about that. Everybody's recovery process is different. What works for me is not going to work for you, maybe. You just got to find what really works for you and actually want to be clean and sober. But if you like this reading, you can find it at nida.nih.gov. And that concludes our reading for the day. Thank you, Bailey, for showing up. Until next time, we'll see you later.